Get off that chair, you blackhead!
She didn't lift her head from the bar.
What?
You stinking little rat. Huh? Naito. Did you dig your way in here?
She slowly set her glass down, looking him straight in the eye.
I paid for the drink.
His face flushed. Veins bulged on his forehead in anger.
A stinking rat wanting to gnaw on cheese and drink wine. You've gone too far. Is the limit your garbage dump?
You're just the chef's son.
I'm a customer.
He became cold, silent. He took 2 steps closer, his eyes wide, and grabbed her hoodie. He dragged her out the door like a rat.
Not your kind here!
Just a few minutes later, he would be begging her forgiveness. He had no idea who he just touched. Let's back this up. 90 minutes earlier. The Drop Zone Tavern sits 18 miles outside Fort Liberty, North Carolina. Wood-paneled walls, a POW MIA flag faded by 60 years of cigarette smoke. Unit patches pinned behind the bar. 82nd Airborne, 1st Cavalry, 75th Ranger Regiment, 5th Special Forces Group. The kind of place where the regulars don't ask your name. They read your posture. It was a Friday in early October, 7:18 in the evening. The air outside was still warm, but inside the tavern smelled like spilled beer, old leather, and the slow burn of a fryer that hadn't been changed in days. Behind the bar stood Earl Jackson, 63 years old, cane leaning against the cooler, one leg made of titanium, and a story he didn't tell most people. He'd lost the other one in Mogadishu in 1993. 21 hours, pinned down in a stairwell with 7 other Rangers. He came home with a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, and a habit of pouring drinks before customers asked for them. The bell above the door rang. He looked up. She walked in alone. Black woman, mid-30s, gray hoodie, dark jeans, sneakers, hair pulled back tight. She moved like someone who'd been taught to scan a room before stepping into it, eyes touching every exit, every shoulder, every reflection in the mirror behind the bar. Earl smiled small. He already knew who she was. He'd been waiting all day. She slid onto a stool at the end of the counter, set a paperback down. The Things They Carried, Tim O'Brien. Same book she'd opened on this same stool every year for 9 years running. "Ginger ale, Sergeant," Earl said, already reaching for the glass. "Captain now," she said, gentle, almost shy about it. Earl froze, smiled wider. "Well, I'll be damned. When'd that happen?" "March. Drink still on the house." "You said that 9 years ago." "And I meant it 9 years ago." He poured, slid the glass over. Their eyes met for a half-second longer than they needed to. Behind them, above the back wall, hung a steel KIA bracelet, bent, tarnished. The name Tyrell Brooks stamped into the metal. Earl had kept it there for 9 years. Nobody touched it. Nobody asked about it. The regulars knew. Felicia Norwood lifted her ginger ale. Earl lifted his coffee mug. Neither of them spoke. They didn't have to. She set the glass down and opened her book. On her own right wrist, under the cuff of her hoodie, was another bracelet. 6 names. Tyrell at the top, 5 more underneath. Reyes, Hutchinson, Carter, Boone, Ellis. Niger, 2017. The ambush that should have killed her too. Every year she came back to this stool the night before the anniversary. Every year she drank a ginger ale she didn't taste. Every year Earl pretended he didn't see her eyes get wet. The bar was half full, maybe 20 regulars. 2 retired master sergeants playing pool in the back. A Vietnam vet in a faded 1st Cav cap nursing a Coors, a couple of off-duty mechanics from the motor pool, and in the corner booth, 3 men who didn't belong. Brett Wilson, 28 years old, beer belly straining a Back the Blue t-shirt, the American flag chain around his neck. He'd been drunk since 4 in the afternoon. His daddy was Chief Harold Wilson, the most powerful man in Cumberland County. Brett had never served a day in uniform in his life, flunked the ASVAB, failed a urine test, washed out of MEPS twice, but he wore his daddy's reputation like a holster. He hated this bar. He hated that veterans came here. He hated that he couldn't sit at the counter and pretend he was one of them. He'd been staring at the back of Felicia's head for 9 minutes. His knuckles were white around his beer bottle. His friends had stopped talking. They knew the look. They'd seen it before. Earl Jackson saw it too. He'd been watching Brett out of the corner of his eye since the moment Felicia walked in. He knew this was coming. He'd just been hoping, the way an old man hopes for one good night, that maybe tonight wouldn't be the night. Brett stood up. He walked toward the counter, beer bottle still in his fist. Earl's grip tightened on the bar towel. "Brett," he said, low and even. "Sit down." Brett didn't sit down. He kept walking. Felicia turned the page of her book. She hadn't looked up once. She didn't need to. She'd already counted the steps. Brett stopped 2 feet from her stool, close enough that she could smell the beer on him, Bud Light and something sour underneath it. He didn't say hello. He didn't say excuse me. He leaned his elbow on the counter, right next to her book, and grinned at the side of her face. "You lost, sweetheart?" Felicia kept her eyes on the page. "No, sir." "Sir." He laughed, loud, theatrical. He turned to his friends in the booth like he wanted them to hear. "She called me sir. You hear that, boys? Manners on this one." His friends laughed on cue. The Vietnam vet in the corner stopped drinking and watched. Felicia turned the page. Brett's smile dropped a notch. He didn't like being ignored. "I asked you a question, sweetheart." "I answered it." "You answered it like I was somebody you don't need to look at." She set the book down, slow, squared her shoulders to the bar. Then, finally, she looked at him. It was the kind of look soldiers give to a target before they decide it isn't worth the bullet. "How can I help you, sir?" Brett's neck flushed pink. He hadn't expected her voice to be that steady. He'd expected fear. He'd expected the way black women in this town usually looked at him, eyes down, voice small, trying to disappear. Instead, she was looking right at him, like he was a paperwork mistake. He took a step closer. "You can help me by getting up off that stool and finding a different bar." Earl set his coffee mug down hard on the counter. "Brett, that's enough. You stay out of this, old man. This is my bar. I'll stay in whatever I want. Your boss owns this bar, Earl, and my daddy knows your boss." Earl's jaw flexed. He didn't answer. He just kept his hand on the bar towel and his eyes on Brett. Felicia spoke, quiet, calm. "I'm not bothering anyone. I'd like to finish my drink." "You bother me." "That sounds like your problem, sir." The bar went still. The pool players stopped mid-shot. The Vietnam vet set his beer down. Even the jukebox seemed to drop in volume. Brett's friends slid out of the booth. 2 of them, one bigger than him, one smaller. They walked over and stood behind him, arms crossed, trying to look like backup. Brett liked that. His chest puffed out. "You know who my daddy is?" "I don't, sir, and I don't need to." "Chief Harold Wilson, Cumberland County. Every badge in 20 miles answers to a Wilson." "Congratulations to your daddy." The Vietnam vet snorted into his beer. Brett heard it. His face went from pink to red. The vein at his temple jumped. "What did you say to me?" "I said, congratulations to your daddy." "You being smart with me?" Felicia didn't answer. She just held his eyes. There was no defiance in her face, no fear, no anger. Just the kind of stillness you only see in 2 places. A chapel, or a soldier who has decided that whatever happens next, she will not be the one who started it. Brett shifted tactics. He reached out and slid her ginger ale away from her, across the counter, out of her reach. "Drinks are for paying customers." "She paid." "Did she?" "Yes." "You sure, Earl?" You sure she didn't just walk in here off the highway and start helping herself? Earl reached under the counter, pulled out a receipt, held it up. Cash, 8:02 p.m., right here. Brett didn't even look at it. Don't matter. She's still leaving. I'm not leaving, Felicia said. She said it the same way she'd said I paid for my drink. Same volume, same calm, no emphasis on any word. But something in the air changed when she said it. Brett heard it. His friends heard it too. The smaller one took half a step backward. Brett didn't. Brett doubled down. He pulled out his phone, made a show of dialing, held it up to his ear. Yeah, Dad. Yeah, it's me. I'm at the drop zone. Got a situation. Some out-of-towner refusing to leave, causing a disturbance. Yeah, send Davis. He hung up, smiled at Felicia. Cop's gonna be here in 4 minutes. You can leave on your own, or you can leave in cuffs. Your choice, sweetheart. Felicia picked her ginger ale back up, pulled it back toward herself, took a slow sip, set it down exactly where it had been before. I'll wait for the officer. Brett's smile cracked. He hadn't expected that either. He'd expected her to break by now. He'd expected tears, or a raised voice, or the kind of stumbling apology black women in Cumberland County had learned to offer the Wilson family for 2 generations. Instead, she was sipping her ginger ale like he wasn't even there. His ears burned red. His friends looked at the floor. The bigger one cleared his throat. Brett, man, maybe we should— Shut up, Travis. Earl, behind the counter, slid his cane closer to his hand, just a 1/4 inch, just in case. The Vietnam vet at the corner table stood up, slow, stiff in the knees. He didn't say anything. He just stood, watching. The clock on the wall ticked. 3 minutes. 4. 4 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Officer Caleb Davis walked in. 26 years old, 6 months on the job. Uniform crisp, hand resting on his belt the way they teach you at the academy. Close to the weapon, but not on it. He scanned the room the way Felicia had scanned it 90 minutes earlier. Same instinct, different uniform. His eyes found Brett first, then Earl, then the Vietnam vet standing now at his table, then Felicia at the counter. He didn't like what he was seeing. Brett, what's going on? She's disturbing the peace. She's sitting down, Brett. She's refusing to leave. Is the bar asking her to leave? I'm asking her to leave. Do you own the bar? Brett's jaw clenched. My daddy, I know who your daddy is. Does he own the bar? No. Does the bartender want her gone? Earl spoke up clear. She's welcome to stay as long as she wants, officer. Davis exhaled, closed his eyes for half a second. He didn't want to be here. You could see it on his face. He looked like a man being asked to choose between his job and his conscience, and he wasn't ready for either answer. He turned to Felicia, tried to keep it gentle. Ma'am, can I see some identification? May I ask why, officer? Brett's made a complaint. I have to follow up. It's procedure. What complaint specifically? Davis hesitated. He looked at Brett. Brett glared back, daring him to back down. Davis swallowed. He says you were aggressive. Was I aggressive when you walked in? No, ma'am. Has anyone in this bar told you I was aggressive? Davis looked around. 20 pairs of eyes. The Vietnam vet shook his head no. The master sergeants at the pool table shook their heads no. The off-duty mechanics shook their heads no. Earl shook his head no. Brett was the only one nodding. Davis looked down at his boots. Ma'am, ID, please. I just need to write it up and we can all go home. Felicia reached, slow, hands visible the whole time, into the front pocket of her hoodie. Brett yelled, Gun! He hadn't seen a gun. There was no gun. There was a wallet. He could see it was a wallet. Everyone could see it was a wallet. The Vietnam vet flinched and put a hand on his chest. One of the pool players said, Christ, under his breath. but Brett yelled anyway. Davis startled hard. Body went rigid. Hand jerked toward his weapon, fingers brushing the holster grip. Felicia froze in place. Hands open, palms forward, wallet held carefully between her teeth. The bar went dead silent. Even the jukebox seemed to hold its breath. Earl said one word. Very quiet. Almost a prayer. Jesus. Davis took a breath, then another. His chest was heaving. Slowly, very slowly, he lowered his hand away from his weapon. His face was the color of milk. A bead of sweat rolled down from his temple into his collar. "Ma'am," he said. His voice cracked on the first syllable. He cleared his throat, tried again. "Ma'am, you can hand me the wallet. Slow." She did, slowly. 2 fingers, like she was handling unexploded ordnance. He opened it, looked at her driver's license, looked at her face, looked at the license again. Behind the driver's license, in a small, clear sleeve, was a second ID. Green. Bigger. Military. He didn't see it. He was too rattled, too focused on getting through this without anyone getting shot. He closed the wallet, handed it back. "Ma'am, I think it'd be best if you stepped outside with us, just to cool things down." "I haven't done anything wrong, officer." "I know, ma'am. I know. Please, let's just step outside." Brett, behind Davis, grinning now, mouthed 2 words to his friends. "Watch this." Felicia stood up from the stool, slow, hands still where everyone could see them. She slid the paperback into her hoodie pocket, picked up the canvas duffel bag at her feet. She looked at Earl. Earl gave her the smallest nod. His hand drifted under the counter, toward the phone, not the cane. Felicia saw it and nodded back. A 9-year friendship distilled into one silent agreement. She walked toward the door. Brett followed close, almost stepping on her heels. Davis followed behind, looking miserable. The 2 friends followed Davis. The Vietnam vet started moving too, but Brett's bigger friend, Travis, stepped sideways to block him. "Sit your old ass down, Pops." The vet didn't sit. He just stopped, eyes locked on Felicia's back, hands shaking. The bell rang as she stepped outside. The parking lot was lit by one buzzing neon sign that spelled "Drop Zone" in tired red letters. The pavement was still warm. Cicadas screamed in the pine trees. A police cruiser sat sideways across 2 spots, blue lights off. Davis's cruiser. Brett's father's cruiser was parked next to it. Brett had been driving it all night. "Brett," Davis said, "is that your dad's unit? He let me borrow it." "Brett, you can't drive a marked unit when you're drunk." "Shut up, Kyle." "It's Caleb." Felicia stopped at the edge of the sidewalk, set her duffel bag down between her feet, crossed her arms loosely. Waited. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Davis was the one in uniform. The next move was his. Davis wiped sweat off his upper lip. "Ma'am, I just need to take a quick look in the bag, make sure there's nothing we need to worry about. Then you can go on your way." "On what grounds, officer?" Just for safety, ma'am. Yours and mine." "You have no probable cause. I haven't been detained. I haven't been arrested. I haven't consented to a search." Davis blinked. He hadn't expected legal vocabulary. He stammered. Brett pushed past him. "For God's sake, Kyle, if you won't do it, I will." He grabbed Felicia's duffel bag. She moved fast, not violent, fast. Her hand shot out and clamped down on the strap before he could lift it. Her knuckles went white. Her arm didn't tremble. "That bag is my property, and this town is my property. Let go." "No." They stood there for 3 seconds, 2 hands on one strap, his face inches from hers. Davis stood frozen behind them, hand floating over his radio but not pressing it. Brett yanked, hard. He was bigger than her by 60 pounds. He used all of it. The strap ripped out of her grip. She stumbled forward one step, caught herself, and went still. Brett unzipped the bag right there on the hood of his father's cruiser. He started pulling things out and throwing them on the pavement. A change of clothes, a toothbrush, a worn copy of Black Hawk Down, a leather notebook, a pair of Oakleys. Then a folded cloth, black velvet, soft, wrapped tight around something small and heavy. Brett picked it up, frowned at the weight. "What's this? Drugs?" "Put it back in the bag, sir." "Why? What is it?" "It's not yours. Put it back." He unwrapped it. Inside the velvet was a steel bracelet, heavy, hand-finished. 6 small steel plates threaded onto a stainless cable, each plate engraved with a name: Tyrell Brooks, Reyes, Hutchinson, Carter, Boone, Ellis. Brett held it up to the neon light, squinted, read the first name out loud, mocking the syllables. Tyrell. What kind of name is Tyrell? Davis behind him went very still. Felicia's right hand drifted to her own left wrist, to the matching bracelet hidden under her hoodie cuff. She pressed the steel against her skin like she was holding herself in place. Davis spoke quiet. "Brett, put that down." "What? It's just a bracelet." "That's not just a bracelet. Looks like cheap junk to me." "Brett, I'm telling you, put it down." Brett looked at Davis, looked at Felicia, looked at the bracelet. He could feel he'd touched something he didn't understand. And like every man who's felt small in public, he made the smallest decision possible. He threw it. The cable hit the pavement, bounced once. The clasp snapped open. 6 steel plates skittered across the parking lot in 6 different directions. Tyrell Brooks slid under the cruiser. Reyes bounced against the curb. Hutchinson spun like a coin and came to rest under Brett's boot. He didn't move his foot. He stepped on it. Inside the drop zone, Earl Jackson saw it through the front window. The old ranger let out a sound. Not a word, not a curse, just a sound that the Vietnam vet would later say was the worst noise he'd ever heard a grown man make. Outside, Felicia's eyes closed. For the first time in the entire night, her composure broke. Just for 1 second. Her chest hitched, her right hand lifted toward the scattered names like she could call them back. Then her training caught her. The hand stopped, came back down, curled into a fist at her side. When she opened her eyes, they were wet, but her voice was the calmest sentence Davis would hear in his entire career. "You just stepped on the name of a man who died saving 4 Americans in Niger. That bracelet is the personal property of a killed-in-action soldier's family. You want to keep going, or you want to stop?" Brett laughed in her face. "Niger? Where the hell is Niger? Probably made it up." He shoved her, both hands, flat on her chest, hard. Her back hit the side of the cruiser. The impact knocked the breath out of her for half a second. She caught the door handle with her right hand to keep from falling. Davis snapped. "Brett, that's enough! Stay out of this, Kyle. It's Caleb, and you just assaulted a civilian in front of a sworn officer." "She's not a civilian. She's a liar." Brett grabbed Felicia by the front of her hoodie, lifted her up onto her toes, slammed her back against the cruiser a second time. His forearm came up across her throat, pressed. She did not fight back. She could have. He had no training. She had 15 years of it. She could have broken his elbow in 2 motions and put him on the ground bleeding before Davis finished the next sentence. She did not fight back. She made a choice. She locked eyes with Davis and held them. "Officer Davis," she said, voice tight from the pressure on her throat but absolutely clear. "You are now witnessing a federal civil rights violation. Your body camera is on. Your career ends tonight, or it begins tonight. Choose." Davis's hand went to his radio. He keyed the mic. "Dispatch, this is Davis. I need backup at the Drop Zone Tavern, Code 3, and I need a supervisor, not Chief Wilson. Get me anyone else. The radio crackled. Davis, repeat. Did you say not Chief Wilson? You heard me. Anyone else. Brett's head snapped toward Davis. What the hell are you doing? My job, Brett, for once in my life. Inside the drop zone, Earl Jackson was on his phone behind the counter. Not 911. A contact saved in his phone for 9 years. Lieutenant Colonel Williams, 5th SFG, 24/7. The line picked up on the second ring. This is Williams. Colonel, it's Earl Jackson at the Drop Zone Tavern. A pause. Williams's voice changed instantly. Earl, talk to me. She's here. She's in trouble. Chief Wilson's boy has hands on her in the parking lot. There's 6 names on the pavement, Colonel. 6. He stepped on one of them. The rookie cop just radioed for backup, but Chief's gonna roll up any minute and bury this. 2 seconds of silence. Then Williams's voice came back like steel. Earl, do not let her leave with them. I don't care what you have to do. I am calling the commanding general right now. She's in the building. In which building? This one. She's having dinner with me. I am hanging up and walking across this room and telling her face to face. The line clicked dead. Earl Jackson set the phone down. He looked up at the KIA bracelet hanging over the back bar. The one that said, Tyrell Brooks, the original, the one Felicia had given him 9 years ago. He whispered to it, Hold on, brother. Cavalry's coming. For your girl. Outside, Brett's forearm was still on Felicia's throat. Her hands were down at her sides. Open, empty, visible. The Vietnam vet inside the bar had finally pushed past Travis and was now at the front window, watching. His phone was out, recording. 3 other phones were out, recording. Brett didn't see any of them. He leaned in close to Felicia's ear. His breath was hot and sour. Who was Tyrell, sweetheart? Some boyfriend you made up? She didn't answer. She just smiled, small, tight. The kind of smile that ought to terrify any man who'd ever been in a fight. Brett didn't recognize it. He'd never been in a fight. He pressed harder. Then, in the distance, a sound nobody in the parking lot expected. Tires. Multiple sets, coming fast. Not 1 cruiser, 3. And behind them, 2 black SUVs with federal plates. And behind them, a black sedan flying a flag from the front fender, a flag with 4 stars. The first vehicle was an unmarked Crown Victoria, tires screaming. The driver door opened. A man in Army service uniform stepped out, eagles on his shoulders. Lieutenant Colonel Grant Williams, 5th Special Forces Group. He took one look. Brett's forearm across Felicia's throat, 6 steel nameplates scattered across the pavement, and his face went from concerned to something colder. He walked, fast. 10 feet away he spoke, voice low, almost conversational. Son, take your arm off my captain. Brett blinked. Your what? Off her throat, right now. Buddy, I don't know who you think you are. I'm the man who'll ruin the rest of your life if you don't move that arm in 2 seconds. 1. Brett froze. 2. The arm dropped. Felicia stayed against the cruiser, chest rising, falling. Williams stepped between them, looked at Felicia. His face softened just enough for a human being to peek through. Captain Norwood, you all right? I'm fine, sir. Look me in the eye and say that again. She did. I'm fine, sir. He nodded once, turned to face Brett. The human being went back behind the uniform. State troopers pulled in behind him, then 2 black SUVs with federal plates. CID, Army Criminal Investigation Division. 4 agents in plain clothes, badges out. And behind them, rolling in slow and steady, the black sedan with the 4-star flag. The driver got out, stood at attention beside the rear door. Brett's mouth was hanging open. The rear door opened. A woman stepped out. 62, silver hair pulled back tight, Class A uniform pressed sharp enough to cut, 4 silver stars on each shoulder, more ribbons than most people see in a lifetime. General Eleanor Hastings, Commanding General, United States Army Special Operations Command. She walked across the lot like she was crossing her own living room, stopped 6 feet from Felicia, and then, slowly, deliberately, with the precision that takes 40 years of practice, a 4-star general of the United States Army brought her right hand up to her brow and held it. The parking lot went silent. Cicadas, neon hum, nothing else. Brett's friends pressed their faces against the front window. The Vietnam vet was crying. Earl Jackson stood in the doorway holding the frame with both hands. General Hastings spoke, loud enough to carry. Captain Felicia Norwood, United States Army Special Forces. 8 years ago, I signed your name onto a list of 4. Tonight, I will not be the general who let one of those 4 be choked against the side of a police car while 6 of her dead lay on the asphalt. She paused. As you were, Captain. Felicia held her own salute. Hastings dropped hers, walked the last 6 feet. Voice quiet, just for the 2 of them. Captain, I know we don't do this. Quiet professionals. I know. Felicia's voice cracked just once. Ma'am, with respect, this is exactly what we don't do. I know, Norwood, but tonight isn't about you. It's about every soldier who didn't get this moment. So you stand here and take it. That's an order. Felicia exhaled, slow, brought her own right hand up and returned the salute. She did not like it. You could see it on her face. But she did it. Hastings turned around. Now she looked at Brett. For the first time, her eyes were the color of wet steel. She walked to him slow, stopped 2 feet away. He was taller by 4 inches. She made him feel 6 years old. Son, look at me. Brett's eyes were wide. His mouth was working, but no sound was coming out. A dark spot was spreading on the front of his jeans. He had wet himself. He didn't even know it yet. I said, look at me. He looked. You put your hands on a Green Beret captain who has earned 3 Bronze Stars saving lives you are not man enough to carry the rucksack of. You stepped on the name of Sergeant First Class Tyrell Brooks, who died holding a position so 4 Americans could be evacuated, including her. She gestured at Felicia without looking. You dragged her. You choked her. You said, not your kind here, on camera, in front of 20 witnesses, 18 miles from one of the largest military installations on this continent. Brett's lip was trembling. I didn't know. I know. That's the entire point. The law doesn't care if you know, and I sure as hell don't care if you know. She turned her head to the CID agents. Gentlemen, he's all yours. 2 agents stepped forward, cuffs out. Brett finally found his voice. It came out as a scream. Wait! My dad's the chief! My dad's the chief! Hastings was already walking back toward Felicia, over her shoulder, casual and bored. Your dad is about to be the 2nd arrest of the night, son. You'll see him in federal court. And right on cue, the chief's cruiser came tearing in from the other end of the lot. Lights on, siren off, door flying open. Chief Harold Wilson stepped out yelling before his boot touched the ground. What the hell is going on at my... He saw the 4-star flag. He saw the CID agents putting cuffs on his son. He saw General Hastings standing in the middle of his parking lot in full Class A. He stopped mid-sentence. His mouth stayed open. His hand drifted toward his radio, and then, very slowly, away from his radio. He understood, in that exact second, that he had driven his own cruiser into the end of his own life. Chief Harold Wilson did the math in his head. Fast. He smiled. General, there's been a tremendous misunderstanding here. My boy, he's got a drinking problem. Let me get him home and we'll sort this out tomorrow, civil-like. Chief Wilson, and I'm sure the captain would agree there's no need. Chief Wilson, you will be quiet now. He was quiet. Hastings turned to the lead CID agent. Agent Anderson, your jurisdiction.
Harold Wilson, you are under arrest for obstruction of justice and conspiracy to violate civil rights. Hands on the hood.
Now, wait. On the hood, Chief. He turned, put his hands on the hood of his own cruiser. The metal was still warm from the engine. Anderson cuffed him while his deputies watched from the edge of the lot. The youngest, Reeves, was crying. Officer Caleb Davis stood 10 feet away from all of it, body camera still recording, hands trembling.
Felicia walked over to him, stopped close enough her voice did not carry.
Officer? Yes, ma'am. You did the right thing. I should have done it sooner. Yes, you should have, but you did it. That matters. His eyes filled. Ma'am, there was a medic. Anbar, 2019. IED hit our convoy. I was bleeding out, and a woman in your patch held me on the ground for 40 minutes with her hands inside my belly. I never got her name, just saw the patch on her shoulder. De Oppresso Liber.
Felicia looked at him a long moment.
What unit? Third group, ODA 3215. She nodded. Captain Renee Holloway. She trained under me. Major now, stationed at Hood. Davis covered his mouth. Tell her yourself. I'll get you her contact. Pay it forward. She walked away. CID loaded Brett into the federal SUV first. He was sobbing, snot running down his chin. His friends had already been picked up by state troopers 2 miles down the highway. Then they loaded the chief. He did not sob, went stiff-faced and silent, eyes straight ahead, the way a man does when he is already mentally drafting the press release. State troopers began taping the scene, markers next to each of the 6 steel nameplates scattered across the pavement. Hastings did not let the troopers touch them. She walked the lot herself, bent down, 62-year-old knees protesting, and picked up Tyrell Brooks from under the cruiser. Then Heiress from the curb, Hutchinson from where Brett's boot had stood, Carter from a tire, Boone from a crack in the asphalt, Ellis from under a beer bottle. She held all 6 plates in her cupped palm, walked to Felicia, placed them one by one into Felicia's open hand, like she was returning them to the only person who had the right to hold them. Felicia closed her fingers around the steel. She did not cry. Her shoulders shook once. That was all. Earl Jackson came out of the bar with his cane. He brought the stainless cable, the broken clasp, and a jeweler's pliers he kept under the counter for exactly this purpose. He sat down on the curb next to her. Hold out your hand, Captain. She did. The old ranger took the 6 plates from her palm. One by one, with hands that had not been steady in 20 years, he threaded them back onto the cable in the right order. Tyrell first, Ellis last. He closed the clasp. He handed it back to her. Reporters arrived 3 minutes later. Lila Brown from the local paper got there first. 2 news vans pulled in behind her. She had received an anonymous tip from a phone number she would later learn belonged to a Vietnam vet in a first cav cap who had pressed send at 8:48 p.m. Hastings turned to Davis. Officer, you are not in trouble tonight. You will be in the morning. Get your union rep. Get a lawyer. Tell the absolute truth. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. Good man. She turned to Colonel Williams. Get her home. Brief her in the morning. She has the entire United States Army standing behind her starting at 0600. Yes, ma'am. Felicia did not go to a hotel that night, did not go back to base. Colonel Williams drove her to the cemetery instead. It was 11 at night when they arrived. Williams stayed in the car. She walked to a headstone in the third row from the back. White marble, crisp letters. SFC, Terrell R. Brooks. U.S. Army Special Forces. She knelt down. She did not say anything for a long time. Then she took the repaired bracelet off her wrist and laid it across the top of the headstone. "Sorry I'm late, brother." The video hit the internet before sunrise. Earl Jackson's recording. 48 seconds of Brett Wilson dragging a black woman across the floor of a soldier's bar, yelling, "Not your kind here." Then the cut to the parking lot. Then the four-star general saluting. By 6 in the morning, it had been viewed 11 million times. By noon, it had been viewed 60. The hashtags trended in this order. Hashtag salute her first. Then hashtag say their names. 6 tags, 1 for each plate on the bracelet. Then hashtag drop zone tavern. Then hashtag fire Chief Wilson, which by Sunday had been replaced by hashtag convict Chief Wilson, because by Sunday, everyone already knew he had been fired. Lila Brown's article ran on the front page of the Fayetteville Observer Sunday morning. It was picked up by the Associated Press by 10 a.m. By Monday, it was front page of the New York Times. By Tuesday, the Pentagon press briefing opened with it. By Wednesday, 3 sitting United States senators had introduced legislation in Felicia's name, the Norwood Act, requiring federal civil rights training for any law enforcement agency that received Department of Defense surplus equipment. Felicia did not give any interviews. She turned down every single one. CBS, CNN, The View, Joe Rogan, a direct invitation from the president. She told her commanding officer in writing, "Sir, I respectfully decline. I am a soldier. The loud part isn't my job." The federal civil rights investigation expanded fast. Special Agent in Charge Anderson pulled the personnel file of every single Cumberland County deputy who had served under Chief Wilson in the last decade. Within 10 days, 18 old complaints that had been investigated and closed were reopened. Within 3 weeks, 2 more deputies had been suspended. Within 5, a federal grand jury had been seated. Within 7, the Department of Justice filed a pattern and practice lawsuit against the entire Cumberland County Sheriff's Department. The town held its breath. 6 months later, the trial. Federal Courthouse, Raleigh, North Carolina. Judge Margaret Whitaker presiding. Lead prosecutor, a no-nonsense assistant U.S. attorney named Vivian Moore. Defense for Brett, a Charlotte firm his father had hired and could not afford. Defense for Chief Wilson, a smaller firm hired late after his first lawyer had quit. The prosecution called 23 witnesses across 9 days. Earl Jackson took the stand on day 3. He brought his cane. He left it leaning against the witness box and stood up to take the oath. When Moore asked him what he saw that night, he did not embellish. He said it flat, the way old rangers say things. "I saw a girl trying to drink a ginger ale. I saw a coward put his hands on her. I saw him drag her across my floor and step on the name of a man I personally helped train. I called for backup. Backup came. That's all I did." The jury cried. Not loudly, but 3 of them cried. The Vietnam vet, name was Roy Sullivan, turned out, testified on day 4. He admitted he should have moved sooner. Moore asked him if he wanted to apologize to Captain Norwood from the stand. He said no. He said, "She doesn't need my apology. She needs me to not freeze next time. That's the only apology that's worth anything." The jury cried again. Officer Caleb Davis testified on day 6 for the prosecution. His own attorney sat beside him gripping a folder. He told the court everything. He told them how he had hesitated, how he had asked for the ID even when he knew Brett was lying, how he had not noticed the military ID behind the driver's license, how he had finally radioed for backup only after Brett had Felicia's throat against the cruiser. He did not minimize. He did not excuse. When Moore asked him what changed his mind in that parking lot, he said, "I saw a patch on her wrist. De oppresso liber. And I remembered a woman in Anbar who held my guts in for 40 minutes so I could come home. I figured if I owed her, I owed this one too. The Cumberland County deputies in the gallery, the ones who had stood on the edge of the lot that night doing nothing, looked at the floor. Brett took the stand on day 8, against his attorney's advice. He cried, he apologized, he blamed alcohol, he blamed his father, he blamed Black Lives Matter, he blamed his ex-girlfriend, he blamed the news, he blamed everyone in the courtroom except himself. Vivian Moore let him talk for 26 minutes before her cross-examination. Her first question. Mr. Wilson, when you stepped on the name of Sergeant First Class Tyrell Brooks, did you know whose name it was? No, ma'am. Do you know now? Yes, ma'am. Read it out loud, please. He read it. He started crying again before he got to the rank. She made him read all 6. The jury did not cry that time. The jury just watched him. The verdicts came down on a Thursday afternoon. Brett Wilson, guilty on all federal counts. Civil rights violation under color of law, assault on a service member, theft and desecration of a killed in action memorial item, filing a false police report, hate crime enhancement applied to every count. Sentence: 8 years, federal prison, no parole. Chief Harold Wilson, guilty on all counts, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to violate civil rights, evidence tampering. 3 counts of corruption tied to the 18 reopened files. Witness intimidation. Sentence: 16 years, federal prison. Pension stripped. Lifetime ban from any law enforcement position. Officer Caleb Davis, plea agreement accepted. 5 years probation. Permanent ban from law enforcement. 500 hours of community service at the Fayetteville Veterans Legal Aid Clinic, where Felicia herself had quietly arranged a position for him. The civil settlement landed 2 months later. $22 million, paid by Cumberland County to the 18 victims of the Wilson era, with the largest single share earmarked for Felicia, who refused it and redirected the entire amount into a legal fund. The Cumberland County Sheriff's Department was dissolved by federal consent decree. Its functions absorbed into a newly created Cumberland County Public Safety Authority, with mandatory federal civil rights training, body cameras on every shift, and a citizen oversight board co-chaired by Lila Brown and a retired black state trooper named Wendell Hayes. The Drop Zone Tavern stayed open. Earl Jackson stayed behind the bar. Above the back wall, beside the original KIA bracelet that said Tyrell Brooks, he hung a small framed photograph. It was the still frame from his own video, the moment General Hastings's hand reached her brow. Under it, a small brass plate. Salute first. Ask questions never. 1 year later. Felicia Norwood was promoted to major in a quiet ceremony in the chapel at Fort Liberty. 46 people attended. No press. Colonel Williams pinned the gold leaf on her shoulder himself. Earl Jackson stood in the front row with his cane. She did not give a speech. She did, however, found something. It was called the Drop Zone Legal Aid Fund. $22 million from the settlement, plus another $9 million in donations within 90 days of the video going viral. The mission? Civilians mistreated by small-town police in the rural South would get a real lawyer. For free. Felicia put her name on none of it. The letterhead bore the names of Earl Jackson, retired Master Sergeant, Caleb Davis, who had earned his seat the hard way, Lila Brown, journalist, and a black school custodian from the original reopened cases named Patricia Reeves. Officer Caleb Davis finished his 500 hours of community service in 14 months. He kept volunteering after that. He drove veterans to medical appointments. He cleaned the toilets at the legal aid office on Saturdays when nobody else wanted to. He never wore a uniform again. He also wrote a letter to Major Renee Holloway at Fort Hood. He did not ask for forgiveness. He just thanked her for keeping his kid's father alive. She wrote back, "Brett Wilson is in a federal prison in West Virginia. He has 6 years left. He has not had a single visitor. His father is in a separate federal facility outside Atlanta with 14 years left. His wife filed for divorce 3 months in. General Hastings retired in May. Her memoir came out the following spring. The first chapter is titled The Salute. The cover is a close-up of 6 steel nameplates on warm asphalt under a buzzing neon sign. The Drop Zone Tavern is still open. On the anniversary of the original incident, Felicia drove back. Hoodie, jeans, sneakers. She walked through the front door and the bell rang, and Earl was already pouring her ginger ale before her boot hit the floor. This time, the bar was full, twice as full as a year before. Construction workers, teachers, nurses, a black Girl Scout troop celebrating a leadership badge. She sat at her stool, the same stool, end of the counter. A girl came up beside her, 12 years old, brown skin, hair in 2 braids, Girl Scout sash crisp across her chest. She looked at Felicia like she could not believe her eyes. You're her. From the video. Felicia smiled, patted the stool next to her. Sit down. Tell me your name. Imani. Pretty name. What do you want to be when you grow up, Imani? I want to be a soldier, like you. Felicia leaned down so they were at eye level. Be like you, Imani. The army doesn't need more of me. It needs you. The girl smiled, a whole mouth smile that took up her entire face. Earl winked at Felicia from behind the counter. She winked back. Felicia Norwood didn't win that night because she was a Green Beret. She didn't win because a general showed up. She won because 3 people, an old ranger behind the bar, a young cop who finally remembered what he owed, and a tired vet in a first cav cap who refused to look away, decided what was happening was not going to happen quietly. That's not heroism. That's the bare minimum. And the bare minimum, repeated enough, looks an awful lot like justice. So here's my question, the one I want you to actually answer in the comments. If you had been in that bar that night, would you have filmed? Would you have called somebody? Would you have stood up from your table when the choice was easier to make and the cost was lower than it should be? Because the next Felicia Norwood is sitting somewhere right now, probably alone, probably trying to finish a drink, probably hoping she gets to read 1 chapter of her book in peace, and she shouldn't have to earn a uniform first to be treated like a human being. Drop your answer below. I read every comment. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it, subscribe so the next one finds you. We tell the stories the algorithm wants us to scroll past. Don't scroll past.
The story is over, but one thing keeps sticking with me. We usually think respect is for the people who deserve it, people with a title, with a degree, with a track record. Prove yourself and then you get treated right. But this story taught me the opposite. That's not respect. That's a transaction. You give me something, I give you something back. That's not kindness. That's just business. Real respect is harder than that. Real respect is how you treat somebody before you know who they are. Before you see the title, the rank, the credentials, before you know what they can do for you. That's the moment. That's where you see who somebody really is. That's the scary part. You have built a world where dignity had to be earned. You have the rest right, so right, have the right job. And if you don't, people feel free to talk down to you, push you around, treat you like you're nothing. But here's the truth nobody likes to say out loud. Nobody should have to earn the right to be treated like a human being. So, this week, watch how you treat people you know nothing about, the stranger on the street, the server, the person whose name you haven't asked. That's the real you, not how you treat a title, how you treat a stranger. If you had been in that bar, would you have stood up? I read every comment, hit like, subscribe. See you next time.